boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff Booner, Lucas. It is Wednesday, February 26th, and we're a day away, fellas, from the Combine. We'll be in Indy tomorrow for the Combine. We're leaving in the morning. I can't wait. The Lions have met with a bunch of players. You get to hear players speak, like heating up. You know, it's heating up. Draft time's heating up, and I'm hyped for it. I'm ready.
Pumped up. Can't wait. Today was already like day one of here we go. Like player interviews, everything with it. It was a lot, and I can't imagine we're about to get there. And the crazy part is it's like covering it. We're getting tweets out and doing all this stuff. Today, there was no on-field stuff. It was strictly just interviews with D-line. Tomorrow, there's going to be on-field stuff for D-line. There's going to be interviews, I think, for like other position groups. And it's like every day we're about to be in for one. And I hope the people who follow us are like ready for some content and for a lot of different things, because that should be a fun 4 days.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time to go there, cover it, be able to try to network with the NFL community. It's going to be at the perfect time, like you boys were saying. Like they had the interviews today. They're going to keep going throughout the week, but everybody gets on the field tomorrow. We'll be there, be able to break it down, give people great coverage, both on here and through social media throughout the whole week. Got the Pistons, Jeff, looking mighty fine right now against those Celtics. I believe going for what, 8 straight now?
8 straight versus the Celtics, too, is big.
Insane. So, gonna have a great show, fellas. The Doc joining.
That's what I'm excited about. The Doc's been down there for 2 days now. Yeah. So, like, he is, like, dialed into everything. I'm excited to see. I mean, the Doc, to be honest, let's just call a spade a spade. The Doc's one of the guys, and not just, like, I mean, the man's down there breaking news. Like, he's texting us saying, he's like, Boone, like, I just talked to this guy. I mean, this guy's talking to national coverage guys, and he's getting the inside scoop, and then he's tweeting it out. And everyone's like, oh, per Detroit podcast. And it's like the Doc's down there just working, man. And I was like, hey, let's go, Doc. Like, I'm putting out a breaking news about Myles Garrett today, and it's like the Doc's the one that broke it. It's unbelievable. He's killing it.
We got the Myles Garrett. We got a Myles Garrett update. We got Ben Johnson yapping again. We'll get into who the Lions met with, some of the names. Obviously formal, informal. I think they're allowed like 40, 45 formal meetings, and they used them pretty well. I mean, you're looking at the guys they're interviewing, they're talking to, they're all really good players. All of these guys, even informal, like they're meeting with a lot of guys we've talked about on the show, and a lot of, Lions fans have talked about. So it's so far it's exciting. I can't wait to see these guys at the Combine, even though I get it's the underwear Olympics, but we always say the Combine's used to confirm what you already seen on tape. So that is what it's for. And it's also an opportunity for networking, because Adam actually talked about this on Pat McAfee, but it's like a hotbed for deals getting done. You know, front offices are meeting with each other, especially for the draft. You have the Titans who are unsure if they even want to stay at 1. Like there's conversations going on all day, every day for the next up until the draft, but specifically a lot more now that they're in person. So
you've seen in the last 24 hours too, because all the agents are down there. You've seen in the last 24 hours, like news about the Jair Alexander, like, hey, you're able to go seek a trade if you want. Matthew Stafford able to. Who else am I missing? There was like 2 or 3. Jonah Jackson. There was another big one that I'm missing, but there's a bunch of guys that are able to kind of. This morning, what's his name from the Titans? Why am I drawing a blank?
Harold Landry.
That's a big one too. And honestly, that's a miss on our end. Probably should have put something on Twitter about that. But like Harold Landry, a guy who like gets to the quarterback, man, to where like Lions fans should be talking about him to Detroit as well. I listened to a couple national shows today and national podcasts that were in Indianapolis, and I think the 2 or 3 teams that came up a lot about Harold Landry was the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. So like there's their names, and it's like just things are happening. Agents are talking to owners and GMs right now, and it's exciting. By the time Sunday comes around, boys, there's going to be so much NFL news. It's not even like the official like new year of the next NFL season, and it's like bang, 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 bang. Things are happening.
Yeah, no, it's happening fast. You have guys on podcasts, and Ben Johnson had his little he's been doing a little press, or I guess what would you call that? Like a little a press tour, I guess. He's on Pardon My Take. He joined the PFT guys. He said he'd give up his testicles for a Super Bowl to Big Cat. Called Big Cat out.
I think I would too. That was a funny one.
Yeah, called Big Cat. He's got a sense of humor. But then he also went on you were talking to Chris Sims, Mike Florio, and he just snuck a little jab in there today again. And it was a little more lighthearted than I think yesterday. But still, it's like I don't know. Let's show everyone the clip if you missed it. Here's Ben Johnson, what he had to say. They're talking about Penei Sewell throwing passes. Let's hear it.
Penei Sewell looked like he was ready to throw a pass, and it is very rare for an offensive lineman to throw a pass.
The best part of that was he threw a dime every single time in practice. We probably took that for 3 weeks, and it was a dime. It was better than some other people.
Right.
Jared Goff. He's pretty darn good throwing on the move. So
I like it.
He's a freak.
I like
He's a
it.
freak.
Well,
Yeah.
when we were at
Oh yeah, that one. I will say that it even though it sounded more like forced, like you could tell, like it was just an awkward. Like he probably didn't need to make that. I think he thought it'd come out probably a little more. It'd be more funny than it actually was. I think he came out and they're like, it was like the Chris Collinsworth laugh. That's what it sounded like.
Can I just make a quick are we can we just all get over Ben Johnson having a little who cares? You know what I'm saying? Am I the only one that thinks that? He's just out there he obviously was joking. He's not taking a real shot at Jared Goff. And then you have and I love the lines. I'm the slappies of slappies. But it's he obviously is not taking a shot. Him and Jared Goff have an unbelievable relationship. I see people tweeting out being everything going on this week. Now we see why Ben Johnson had such a bad relationship the last few years with Dan Campbell and butted heads with people. What are you talking about? Are we the man for 2 years decided to come back to Detroit? Yeah, now he's an enemy number one because he's in Chicago. Okay. And he's joking around. He's obviously all these, when I watched Part of My Take this morning at whatever time it was, I text you guys. It's obviously he's having a good time on there. They were texting Jared Goff. This is all there are actually people that are genuinely very upset about Ben Johnson making these comments. It's who cares? Who cares? I'm seeing texts come through my phone, people actually mad. I'm why are we actually mad about this? This is obviously he's having a good time joking around. He is an enemy now, but geez, man.
Yeah, I see Sean in there. He says, "Is this Ben just trying to play mind games, or is he going scorched earth for no reason?" Yeah, it seems like he is kind of.
He might have been like this the whole time. It's just he hasn't really been in the media because he wasn't ever the head coach, so he never had to be. He was just behind closed doors for the longest. This might be who Ben was all the time.
He's just a crash out.
Yeah, he's crashed out. No. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was funny. I just, to your point about the Lions fans thing, I've seen Lions fans trying to come up with these conspiracy theories oh, no one congratulated Ben when he left, but everyone congratulated Aaron Glenn. Guys, all season you heard defensive players being that dude's a wizard, in the locker room. They've been complimenting him all season. There's no beef. There's no inside. Did they have a problem with him and Dan have some problems? No, dude. There's nothing there. It's a big.
The funniest one is when I see people and shout out Spetty because I think he's the one that sent it to us today, being there's a reason that none of the players congratulated Ben, but congratulated AG. Or maybe it's just because Ben went to the Bears in division. So they're
you're not going to congratulate. Exactly.
That's the obvious, it has nothing to do with who Ben Johnson is. Why are we trying to make things that aren't you can hate him. We can because he's the Bears coach. He's obviously joking today.
Yeah.
He's having a good time.
Yeah. I
crazy to me, man.
Yeah. You saw Amon-Ra literally be, they happy for him. Although they hate the idea of him coaching the Bears. That's the reason. So
that is all.
It has nothing to do with Ben is some terrible human being. It's ridiculous. But let's get to the Myles Garrett stuff because this is a Doc report, which we're going to talk to Doc about later. He's joining the program as always, and he made it work because he was in Indy today talking to players, talking to Mike Green, talking to Jack Sawyer, talking to all these guys. And then he's on his way to Michigan to join the show. So he's a real one for that. But he dropped this. He dropped this today. And he's got a lot of good sources out there in Indy, some Sports Illustrated people he's been talking to, higher ups he's been talking to, and he got some information. The Detroit Lions are among multiple teams that have reached out to the Cleveland Browns about potentially trading for edge Myles Garrett, per John Maakaron. Reports are that the Browns have not called back on any teams, which confirms what we've heard from Andrew Berry. So that makes perfect sense. Something to keep an eye on if Browns decide to trade Garrett. So, yeah, I mean, hey, the thing you can say, you picked up the phone.
Yeah.
You know, that's really of course, that's like the due diligence Brad has to do, and I'm glad he did it. I just pick up the phone. If it doesn't work, at least you're picking up the phone.
Like with all that too, like the comment yesterday, and I think this is kind of where it all kind of intertwines together. The comment of people taking the tweet that we put out essentially where, hey, Brad's still potentially, he's out there. He knows that the edge room needs to be fixed. Like he's like, I'm very aware of that. But then at the end of it, he goes, hey, like someone asked him, hey, how realistic or is it realistic to make these types of moves? And he says, probably not. Like that probably not can be taken a couple ways. Like he's keeping again, we said it yesterday, keeping those cards close to his chest. Or two, it's like, hey, like these deals, like Jeff, what you said, the fact that we just find out today that he actually is one of the teams, whether there's 10 teams, 4 teams, 2 teams, or Brad Holmes was one of the GMs that reached out and said, I want Myles Garrett. It was the same thing a couple trade deadlines ago when he went after Danielle Hunter. But like we know that he's working and he's trying. And the fact that it was just literally that there was no call back, that makes me think at some point, boys, what did we say yesterday? They're going to have to move off of Myles Garrett at some point. Like it's inevitable at this point. If Myles is like, hey, I'll sit out, they're going to have to move on. Guess what? Brad made the call already. He's ready to go. So as soon as that, boom, guess who Andrew Berry is going to call? One of the guys he's calling back, Brad Holmes. Hey, what can you do for us? And I think that's like a positive sign in all of this, to be honest, boys. And it shows like the people who said, hey, it's unrealistic for Myles Garrett, like, yeah, it's a very far stretched chance, but a lot of these people are saying that this is a move that Brad would never do. Obviously he would, because he's calling about it.
Yeah, and it's something where the Browns, again, we talked about it yesterday, the Browns, in my opinion, would be smarter to hold Myles Garrett post-draft. You can get better investments down the road in a better draft class. You have the number 2 overall pick. You don't have to take a quarterback if you don't want to. It'd be smart to, but they got a lot of things going on in Cleveland. You got Deshaun Watson, you got Myles Garrett, got Denzel Ward. Like we said, Andrew Berry has a lot on his plate. Right now, he's worried about the combine. So I guarantee he has that phone in Bray, Ohio, a do not disturb. He's taking all the voicemails that he wants, but there's going to be a time, to Booner, your point, he has to pick up that phone. And the Lions, Brad Holmes, he has to keep applying pressure, because if you land Myles Garrett, we've talked about it 1,000 times. You already know what this means for the team. We talk about getting to the Super Bowl. Well, you got to be up there in total sacks. You had Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson. That's 20 guaranteed if both play 10-plus games for your defensive line. I think both of those guys are fully capable of reaching 15 each playing together, but we'll give it the floor and say 10 each. But I saw a conversation yesterday on Rich Eisen where they're doing the Overreaction Tuesday, and it's who's going to have more sacks in 2025, Aiden Hutchinson or Myles Garrett. So you're arguing who's going to lead the NFL in sacks between those guys. If you can join those forces, it's something that the NFL has seen only a couple of times. And in the last couple of years, not recently. I say the last dominant edge rushing duo was Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. So what they do? Win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, they're meeting with a ton of edge rushers, linebackers. There's other guys. We'll get to it. But I want to start with one notable edge rusher, and shout out to the doc again. He's really carrying today's show because we're using his content before he joined. But he got a video.
Dominated in Indy, man.
Yeah,
dominated.
He got a video of Mike Green. They all spoke to Mike Green. He got footage and asked Mike Green, because he did meet with the Lions, about the idea of playing with Aiden Hutchinson. Let's take a listen to what Mike Green had to say.
All great players want to play with other great players. If you were to be drafted by the Lions, have you thought about how much fun it'd be to play with Aiden Hutchinson on the other side?
Hey, man, it'll be a pleasure. Aiden, he's a great guy. I've heard a lot about him. He's a great player, too. I know he's battling back from something right now, but hopefully he'll be back on the field soon. And hey, it'll be a pleasure to play anyway.
Yeah, I love that. You know what I also love about Mike Green, before we get into the other side that people are probably a little more concerned about, but the side I really do like is he comes up to that podium and he says, I'm the best player here. And he explained why he's the best player here. He's like, I set up my pass rush. He went into detail. And that's the confidence he plays with. I love that. And then questions start coming out to Mike Green about the sexual assault stuff that apparently was an accusation. There's no like legitimate case or anything, but it's like a rumor. And I've seen the rumor before, but they actually asked him about it, and he was very transparent about it. And he said teams can ask me about it. I have no issue with that. And this is what he said. NFL Draft Files put this out. He said Mike Green was cleared of a sexual assault accusation in high school following an investigation, per Mike Green. Green also said he has zero issue discussing a separate sexual assault accusation that resulted in his departure from Virginia, saying he knows who he is and knows the truth. It's via Joseph Person. He added that he's never been charged with anything. Mike Green appears to want to handle this situation with complete transparency. What NFL teams think will be reflected by where he's selected in April. So that was like a side story of the Mike Green stuff, and people saying he might fall. And listen, we have to all, even though like the rumors, like not good, I have to work off what I know. Like I have to, is he charged? Is it legitimate? I don't know the story. Is there a case? And based on what he said, he's never been charged with anything. So how am I to sit here and just, it's not guilty till proven innocent. It's innocent till proven guilty. And clearly he has not been proven guilty. So is it something that'll linger come the draft time? Yes. Do I think it should hinder teams and he should fall to the second round? I don't. I don't. And that's not me approving anything if true. But what I'm saying is I don't really believe in just making someone guilty because of a rumor. You know what I mean? I'm just not that type of guy. I believe that in general. So, it's something that the Lions should do their due diligence on.
Yeah.
So but if there's no like NCAA issue or police issue, then it is what it is, man.
I'll say this, like we can talk about it all we want. Like those types of situations are terrible. But again, he played a whole season and there's no NCAA. I think someone in the chat said there's no NCAA. Like he didn't get suspended. And I haven't heard about it until today. Doc said he didn't hear about it till no one really knew about it until today. So I don't know how that happened when he's, going through the Senior Bowl and all that, or maybe people didn't know about it and no one really reported it, but it just came out today. But like outside of that, like football wise, like the fact that the Lions did meet with Mike Green today, I think again, like these are those things that are positive seeing what Brad and Dan are doing. They know a need. And I know today, I mean, obviously today was just all edge rushers and interior linemen. So that was the only interviews that were today. So we're going to see more throughout the week. But like you just see the types of guys that they're interviewing. Like they're like these front, like Mike Green potentially is going to be he could be a top 10 pick in this draft, depending on how he tests this week. He could be top 15. And knowing that Brad in 3 of his 4 drafts, he's made some sort of trade, whether it was the 2 that he moved up or the one he moved back, like he makes trades in the first round. And when he likes the guy, he pursues him. And the fact that he sat there today and he did an interview with Mike Green and they wanted to see what he is like, they obviously are interested in him. So like to me, boom, he's on your board right away. Like to be on the other side, Nate Hutchinson. It's like all of these guys that they interview, like these are like, I mean, they interviewed some dudes today. They really did. Jahad Campbell, like I'm starting to like him a little bit more. I went and watched some of his films. Spenny texted us about him and I was like, I got to go watch some more. He looks good. Like they're interviewing some dudes and they know it feels like after today, because today was the edge interviews, it feels like Dan wants to be aggressive. Like I get that feeling. I don't know if you guys do, but I do get that feeling a little bit. The only one, Abdul Carter, they didn't interview because he's going to probably go number 1 overall. But everyone else, they're right here. And it makes you feel like a lot of these guys aren't going to be there at 28. So guess what that means? Like Brad wants to be aggressive. Like he wants to go get a guy. That's what that kind of shows me.
You got to be proactive. You got to move up if you want somebody. And that's what Brad Hull's MO has been with his first and second rounds of the draft. But when it comes to the Mike Green stuff, somebody dropped in the chat as well. Like you're going to see more and more like James Pierce off the field issues, Mike Green off the field issues. If it's something where you have not been charged criminally by the NCAA, then I don't care. Can you play football on Sundays? Absolutely. If you pass the interviews and the Detroit Lions feel like he's a high character guy and they draft him, that's going to tell you enough. Because I'm sorry, boys, I know it's different situations, different type of prospect, because Jalen Carter was considered like a generational type of defensive tackle. But we've seen time and time again guys that come into the first round of the draft that slide a little bit because of off the field issues, and they go into their NFL careers and you don't hear a peep about them off the field. And when you look, I think you can tell that through the interview process as far as how somebody carries themselves, their type of work ethic, how dedicated they are to the game. And if you're Mike Green coming out of Marshall's with 16 plus sacks, Mike Green could have played in other spots, but he stayed there. He wanted to make a fucking name for himself. I don't think Mike Green off the field issues, sure, it might cause him to slide in the draft, but I don't think it's going to be something that lingers on into the NFL and causes issues. Because when he was at Marshall, did you hear anything about him? No. And it's something that's been out a little bit. I've seen some like off the field issues about him. I didn't see it was sexual assault. But again, if we're digging back to high school, a lot of things can happen in high school as far as people making up rumors. Same thing with college. Like, I'm not looking too far into this as far as like, okay, I'm off of Mike Green because of an off the field issue. I don't think it's something that is something that we've seen a player come out before and it's like legitimate. I don't think Mike Green is that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, especially with this situation, like the Lions are meeting with them, so they are going to have, and people should know this. I mean, they're all NFL teams. They're calling. I mean, they call everyone in the player's life. I mean, they're calling coaches. They're coaches all across college teams. So the Lions are going to call Marshall, their coaching staff. Wow, hey, how's Mike Green? What's his character like? You know, this, that. Call other people that are familiar with him. Maybe call people at Virginia. Like, they're going to do so much research and do their due diligence that they're going to be able to come up with a pretty good feel on whether they think he would be good in their culture. Now, personally, I may differ from what Brad thinks. Brad would weigh this. It would be a bigger deal based on his comments in the past. I align more with you, Klotzy. Like, Jalen Carter, I would have taken him. You know, like, that's just kind of how I think. But again, I understand Brad doesn't think that same way. So it's something to pay attention to. Again, all these rumors coming out about a lot of players, and I don't know. I'm not going to make an assumption if it's true or not. I really don't know. But they did meet with a ton of other guys. You mentioned one, Boone, Jahad Campbell. But here's the list. This is on Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, by the way. You see it here. Marshall, edge, Mike Green. Formal. They got Nick Scorton.
Your
Formal.
guy, FA.
Jack Sawyer, I mean, they're getting guys. I mean, we love the first three. I mean, we've all talked about them.
Yeah.
Josiah Stewart, the Michigan man, Boone. I've smaller, but he was productive.
Probably second round.
Yep. They talked to him. LSU edge, Savion Jones, who's a big man too. He's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Paul Jr., who I think they have a past with. Someone said in the chat, please say who it was. I want to credit you, but they said they met with him at the Senior Bowl and they're meeting with him again. So they like him. Outside linebacker, pay attention to that. Jalen McLeod, edge from Auburn. Cody Lindenberg, another outside linebacker, inside. He's just versatile. Another guy that can kind of play all over. Kobe King, I've never been a huge Kobe King fan, even though he's from the city. Love it. I'm pretty sure he changed positions, that's a different one, I think. Maybe
I don't know, because when I was trying to find out who he was, I saw random corner highlights. I'm not gonna lie.
You're thinking of what's his name? I think as you're talking about corner, I think
different
corner
King
went to he went to Green Bay last year.
That's who I'm talking about. Okay, different guy, Kobe King. All right, you keep going down the list. Jay Higgins, another linebacker from Iowa. Oklahoma State, you got Colin Oliver. You got Jahad Campbell, you mentioned him. Howard Cross, the edge out of Notre Dame. Linebacker Barrett Carter, Kenneth Grant. So they're meeting with
Kenneth Grant just at the bottom.
Yeah, and that was formal.
Just put it at the bottom.
You got to use those formal meetings. You got to use them. You got to use them for players you really do like. And they used. I mean, you look at a lot of these formal defensive tackle, edge. They did on Jahad, D end / linebacker, but a couple linebackers. Like, you got to use them on players you really do like. And a lot of these guys are on defense, of course, but edge, linebacker. And this tells me a lot of linebackers. I think the conversation about Derek Barnes may be becoming more and more real now.
I think it's realistic to think that they might
Derek Barnes replacement. You know,
and my last mock threw the Jalen Walker in there. He's probably not going to make it to 28, but I think that's the point that I brought up then was like that's going to be a position that they need, like the Jahad Campbell, Jahad Campbell, like he's going to be someone that like is you're looking at 28 and you're going, yep, because that comes in instantly. You don't re-sign You don't resign Derek Barnes and you bring Jahad Campbell and he's starting right away. Like he could start, and he's a guy too where before, who was it? He was playing with an Alabama. Who were there two? Was it Trayvon Walker? Who was the two edge rushers there?
At where?
At
Last
Alabama
year?
2 years ago.
Then Will Anderson, and
Will-
then I think they had Braswell.
Yeah,
No,
Chris
there's-
Braswell.
The year before, I'm thinking, was Will Anderson and someone else. They had someone else on that other side.
I'm not sure then.
I don't know who it was, but whenever
Yeah.
that year was, I was reading something earlier this morning about it where Jahad Campbell, like he was originally supposed to be the other edge rusher, and you have two guys, I think it was two guys who went in the top 10 over the last 2 years, and he had to kind of move to a Sam spot just based off of that to the linebacker. You know, like they had to move him around because of it. But he's a guy that knows how to play edge. Like he does that. That's probably his biggest strength is coming off the edge. So like I think I like the list of guys they met with. There's a couple guys I wish they might have looked a little bit more into and they would have met with, and I would have looked at it maybe. And there could be too. I think people need to know this. Everyone on this list, there could be more people. These are, I think, the only way that they get this list is when they ask players and they kind of formulate the list off of that. So the Lions could have met with other guys without people knowing because I don't think it has to be announced. We can ask Doc that question to confirm, but I don't think it has to be.
You're absolutely right, Boone, that they could definitely be talking to more people. But if there's one name I'm happy I don't see on this list, it's Shamar Stewart. 1.5 sack, guy that can potentially be huge upside in the NFL. I'm happy that the Lions are not going using one of their formal interviews, at least, on a guy like Shamar Stewart. I look at Jack Campbell. I love that. Like you guys said, the first three. I think two guys that are kind of interesting that now that outside of Jahad Campbell, since we're having the Derek Barnes conversation, Jeff, I think you'll like him a lot, is Barrett Carter out of Clemson. Pretty much just like Jeremiah Trotter. It's 70 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, six pass breakups. He's a little undersized, but he can honestly do it all, and he's probably going to be like late day 2 or early day 3 type of guy. And someone just dropped in the chat as well. Out of Oklahoma State, Colin Oliver, a little bit of an undersized defensive end, but he fits exactly what you want at the Sam spot. Only thing is, boys, 2 games this year, 2 sacks. That's what he did have. And you go back to the year prior, he's making open field tackles on Cam Scadaboo. He can do it all. If you watch the tape, it's there. But like I said, 2 injuries or hurt after 2 games. So he's going to fall. But I think there's a lot of guys that you look, Derek Barnes, 4th round, I believe, out of Purdue. I don't think he's going to be that hard to replace. And it might sound terrible, but I just think that's the business side of things. Like, I don't think Derek Barnes is far from irreplaceable. So you get a guy in there in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, I think could potentially give you Derek Barnes day 1, and they have a lot of depth in there already. Hopefully Malcolm Rodriguez can bounce back, but I agree with you guys, and we've been pretty steady on it over the last 2 weeks that Derek Barnes, Detroit Lions, part ways, grass is green on the other side for both of them. Derek Barnes, go get paid. Lions, go get a new linebacker, and you can do it in this draft. I wouldn't be mad with Jahad Campbell in the 1st round. My thing is like, okay, we need an edge rusher. We need a corner. Like, we have 2 solid linebackers already, and you have depth there. Again, I wouldn't be mad, but I just think if you're staying at 28, wouldn't be mad. You move up for Jahad Campbell, I do have a little bit of issue with that. Just because, again, you're talking about Sam's spot. This is a 4-3 defense, not a 3-4.
But would you have to be realistic about a little bit to where it's like you do need an edge rusher if you have Za'Darius coming back and you like need someone to help kind of replace that Derek Barnes. Like, you're looking for someone to come in right away. Like, that's this draft class. Everything that I'm listening to the last 24, 48 hours is this 1st round is just full of starters, like guys coming in right away and making an impact, whether you want that to be an edge or not. But say Za'Darius comes back, like if you end up moving on to your point, like if you want to move on from Derek Barnes, you better, at least in my opinion, like you better have someone in the 1st round that you're going to get to kind of fill in that spot, and that can be at the edge if you need it. But it's like, that's if you're bringing Za'Darius back. Like, if you're going to make that move, like it has to be that way. Like, you can't just draft a guy if you're bringing Za'Darius back that's going to just rotate with them. It's the same. Like, to me, it's just like, if you're going to make that move and move on from Derek, go get your new guy now. Go get a starter.
In round 1, though?
Yeah, one of the best. You get one of the best of that position, a Jahad Campbell who can come off the edge. Or if you trade up and go get a Jalen Walker, like that position group, like you do it. You make that move, because if you wait and then you just go get a guy that's like half of what Jahad Campbell's going to be in his career, then you're sitting there and you're at a spot to where you have a rookie that you're hoping can fill in that spot. Like, you're hoping with a guy like Jahad, you know for sure he's filling in instantly. Like, it's instant. And that's, to me, if you know you're moving on from Derek Barnes and you know that move's about to happen, you draft off that. because you can't afford like to not have a guy like that coming off the edge. Like you can't. To me, you can't. Like that's a position of need at that point. And you can't unless you're going to go get a Robert Spillane, like you keep saying. But again, you can't. You have to go like get your set and again get a guy that can play the edge too. Then come off the edge. It's
my only issue with it is the scheme that the Lions run. It's a 4-3, not a 3-4. So that Sam guy, a lot of the times, he's not going to be asked to get to the quarterback compared to a pass rusher. And I think when you look at a 4-3 linebacker, there are so many free agents right now in the NFL. Like, get a veteran, prove-it guy, get a young piece, at least in the first round. What I'm saying, if you get a linebacker second round, third round, you're not going to hear a peep out of it. But if you're running a 4-3 defense, we've seen like if you're taking Jahad Campbell off the ball. I don't think that's something that you go on the first round with. If you want to develop into an edge rusher, that's fine. But even if you draft or re-sign Zadarius, in my opinion, you're still drafting an edge guy that Zadarius has made the rotation, or if they have a competition and they beat him out in camp. But you need multiple defensive ends, and you need a guy that can make a difference.
This is where you lose track of.
I don't think you're in a spot where you necessarily are like pounding the table for an outside linebacker because one, we've seen what this linebacker room is with nobodies, and then again, you have free agency where you don't have to look at that. You can go sign a free agent linebacker. We look at the deal that Alex Anzalone's on. You can find that around the NFL and improve that front seven at the edge spot where I think it's more important.
Boone?
No, I mean, I go ahead. We can move on from that. I mean, I was trying to go a little back and forth there.
Well, you can respond.
Yeah, I mean, no, cause it's all good. I get what he's saying, but it's just like it's the same thing over and over. It's like if the edge class is so deep, go ahead and get yourself a Sam, and then get an edge in the second round and move up at from 60. Like, yeah, that's my point. It's like if this edge class is so deep, like you're not going to get a guy that's going to be able to do what Jahad Campbell does in the second. Like that's all it is. Like you won't. You're not, but you can go get an edge rusher. Like if you want to move up from 60, get Jahad Campbell and move up for a Jack Sawyer or move up for one of these other guys who end up falling. Like you make that move, like it just makes a little bit more sense. Like if you want an edge, go ahead and do it at 28, but you're not going to get a guy like Jahad Campbell or even close to it in the second round, even if you move up. Like that's a guy that's only a first round to where like a Jack Sawyer, I had him in my first mock draft going 28, right? But like you can easily, there's a chance a guy like him falls, or there's a guy at the same level as Jack Campbell who falls into the second, and then you make a move up. Like Brad does that. That's the only reason. And again, Jahad can play off the edge too. He could play edge. Like that was what he was doing at Alabama before he really went to the linebacker. So it's like you're kind of getting a 2-in-1 there. It just makes sense to me. It makes more sense when you really break it down, especially when it comes to like talent.
Yeah, it's tough to make it because for me, and I've said that I told Spenny this, like, I'm not going to argue about Jahad Campbell as a player. Like, I think he's a great player. I wouldn't be upset if they took him at 28. I would not be upset. I think it'd be a little different if you like traded up to get him, but I think at 28, he's going to be there. I get it. I've always said with first round picks, I think first round picks are premium, and I look at premium positions. That's why I like the Jack Campbell pick. I was a little like, I love Jack Campbell, the player, but just at the spot, like I have to see who they take in the second. I have to see like the full platter. I got to see the plate, because if you do end up with a Jack Sawyer, then yeah, like you can get over it. But if you do miss out on one of those marquee guys, those marquee edges, I'd be like, damn. Okay, maybe you get your guy, Jared Ivey. Okay, we can work with it, but you just got to get an edge in the second. Then, like, I'm
not pounding the table too, like for a child. Like, just for me, it's more so like, hey, if they end up drafting him, am I gonna be mad? No, because it's kind of the right move if Derek Barnes, if you're moving on, like if you know that's gonna be the decision, and that's Brad's kind of mindset with it. Like, would I rather, like, again, like. This is why it's so difficult, because free agency is coming up before the draft even starts, and you're going to have an idea of who's coming back. Like you're going to know if Zadarius is coming back. You're going to know of certain Derek Barnes, and then they're going to kind of, they're going to bring other guys in. You're going to have a better feeling.
Yeah, I said to Spenny too, because we were kind of going back and forth. Not really, again, not about the player. It's really just that first round pick. We just look at first round picks like a little different. And I get where Spenny was coming from. My big thing with the Spenny was if you have like a Nick Scorton, or you have an opportunity to get Mike Green. Let's say he does fall a little bit. Whatever the case may be, you end up with a pretty good edge rusher at 28, a guy that Brad believes is a very good player. maybe Jihad early second. Maybe you make the jump, give away futures, and go get Jihad. Maybe you get both. I mean, there's other ways, but again, if they take him, I wouldn't be crazy upset. I wouldn't. He's a really good player, and he's top of his position in the class. I mean, he's at Bama. Brad loves those guys. Taron Arnold tweeted about it. He loves them. So I wouldn't be completely shocked there. I just would rather you trade up in the second and get him, but whatever. All right, Night Owl. I want to get to the chat here. Night Owl says Jack Sawyer has elite football character. That guy has MCDC written all over him. If he's there at 28, Brad will pounce. Yeah, we like Jack Sawyer, man. I have no problem with that one.
I'm interested to see, like, as the draft goes on, like, why people are saying he should be a second round guy. He has production. He has athleticism. He has size to the point he has character. And he's got more production than, like, there is no reason in any way. I know I'm going to beat it over the head like a dead stick through this offseason that Shamar Stewart should be taken ahead of Jack Sawyer. Like, when you look at Jack Sawyer, I don't even think you can use the argument, well, he's one of those guys with high floor, low upside. Like, if you watch Jack Sawyer, I understand that everybody after the Michigan game was focused on him crying about the flag being planted, but watch what he did in that game. The man's getting interceptions at the goal line in the college football playoff. He's stripping Quinn Ewers, running it back 90 yards, and there's a clear space between him and the next guy that's trying to chase him. I don't see the weakness in Jack Sawyer's game, to be honest with you. Pass rush check, run check, he's got it all. So I'm going to be very interested to see, like, when you look back after this draft a year later, if he falls in that second round, I think a lot of people be scratching their head like, why? And I think, like Malik just brought up, James Pierce, like, there's a very real chance. Like, James Pierce has a lot of upside. If you're asking me who has, in my opinion, going to be the better player, it's going to be Jack Sawyer over James Pierce. He's just a better overall player.
Yeah, I see a Full Safe Farms. Jihad Campbell's an off-ball and on-ball linebacker. He's a Hassan Reddick type. Hassan was off the ball. Was an off-the-ball backer to start. And then there's Malik's comment there. If James Pierce falls to off-field stuff, anger issues.
What's going on with James Pierce?
People say that he has bad attitude. I don't know.
I haven't heard his name today once.
It's all I've seen that, though, the last probably 2 weeks. I've seen these like draft coverage accounts, like all this stuff. I think, in my opinion, I think a player, this is what I believe. And this is why I wanted Jalen Carter. Like, I have a thought process on it. I think if you have a good locker room,
all right, let's hear it.
If you have a good locker room, you have a good culture. I think a player like James Pierce, who may have questions, he's got some anger issues. You throw him in that environment, in my opinion, he'll be isolated. You get good vets, you get good coaches. Like, he gets to go right into Lacey, the new defensive line coach, Campbell. You get vets, Za'Darius, Aiden, Aleem, DJ. Like, I don't overreact as much. Now, if you're a rebuilding team and James Pierce is going to be a pillar of yours, you have no vets. It's just like, hey, we're just taking this guy. Maybe you have more question marks, but it's the same thing with Jalen Carter. Like, look he walked into the Eagles. They had Brandon Graham. Like, they had who's just retired a couple years ago. The other the defensive tackle they had for a while. Can't think of it, but they had another older player. Someone will drop it in the chat. But they had a good culture.
Big fella.
So yeah, I don't overreact to that stuff as much. And to answer the question, would I still take him? Yes, I would.
You're not even bringing him in too. Like, whoever this edge rusher is like, he's not getting brought in to be your Aiden Hutchinson either. Like, that's not. It's like you just need a good complementary piece to Aiden Hutchinson in the pass rush. Which, again, that's where it gets to the point to where a guy like that's why I think this edge room. Like, would I like to trade up and go get one of these top edges? 100%. Would I be mad though if you get into the second round, they take a linebacker or they take a defensive tackle, and then you get an edge in the second round? No, because like these edges are good. Like this is probably one of the best edge classes you'll see in a long time. Like this is a deep edge class in the second round. Now I don't know about at 60 though. You might have to move up early into the second round, but again, you can make that move. That's where I'm at. I told you guys my guy too today. I have my new guy.
You're getting a lot of guys lately.
When I see something or someone, I'm like, that dude's unbelievable. He's unreal. I don't know how to pronounce his name though.
Yeah, I see. I saw a comment in here. I'm trying to find it. But yeah, I don't overreact to that type of stuff. The question mark concerns, like, Yeah. I believe in the first round.
Especially when you built the culture. Like,
Yeah, that's why you have a culture.
Yeah.
Not saying you sign like shit bags. I'm not saying you sign like a terrible human being, or bring in a terrible human being. But if he has like some question marks, it's like, dude, he's 22 years old, 21. Like, with the right people around him, it'll be fine. And someone mentioned it, Fletcher Cox, the other one. That's who. It was.
That's
Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
Like, he walked in with those two. He was fine.
What time's the doc coming on?
In about a couple minutes.
Can we just talk about my guy real quick?
Yeah. Bring him up because people have been dropping him man the last couple weeks. People have been loving him.
I mean, I'm all in on him. I don't care if you get him at 28. I'm genuinely. I think we're gonna get there tomorrow, boys, and we're gonna watch the edges tomorrow. I think he's gonna test extremely well, and you might have to even trade up to get him, or he might just be like perfect spot at 28 for him. Now, tell me if I pronounce his name wrong, boys. Edge rusher Donovan Ezeruku.
I love Booner. I'm going to see it because I know who you're talking about.
Donovan, or it's Ezeruku or Ezeruku. One of the two. It might be Ezeruku. I don't know why this guy's not getting talked about enough. I think a couple of days ago, someone in the chat, and whoever, if you're there, I think it's Ezeruku.
Izuraku, apparently. Malik says
Izuraku. Whatever it is. I'll tell you what. Someone put it in there a couple days ago, and it got planted. The seed got planted in my head. Okay, I'm gonna look. We're gonna figure this out. And then over the last 24 hours, I keep seeing him. And then today, I was like, I watched. He had like a 20-minute interview on my drive home, and I listened to the whole thing, start to finish. And I had all I could think about. This is a Dan Campbell guy. And in that instant, when I get home, I go look. Did they meet with him? No, they didn't. No one. Like the Lions did not meet with him. Not formal, not informal. This is one of those ones to where it's like maybe no one just didn't like. No one heard about it, and no one knows. This is a guy you have to get on your team. He had 16.5 sacks, boys. And I know he's at Boston College. He's in the ACC. Like, It's not like he was at like a mid-major. He was in a major conference in the ACC, 16.5 sacks. If you go back and watch some of his film, this guy's got like, he's extremely fast. He's the bend that he has, just getting under. Like, it's just like, how is this guy not getting talked about enough? His wingspan is massive. His arms are massive. Like, it's like this guy should be a top 15 pick based off of what he does and what he's done this year and his production. And then listening to him at the combine today in his meeting and his interview, it's like, how is this guy not talked about as one of the better edge rushers in the class? How? Like, I genuinely, I do not understand. And if he's going to continue, like if he tests good, he might move up. But if his spot, like where he's at right now, I'll tell you what, boys, if he's there at 28 and you snag him across from Aiden Hutchinson, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be different in the NFL. He really is. And he was breaking down today too. And this is what I love about him. Jeff, I think you mentioned about a different edge rusher today. Or I think Mike Green. But like today in his interview, he's just breaking down like not just like, hey, what are your favorite pass rush moves? Like, he's like, no, all game long. Like my favorite move is like, he calls it the ghost move. He's like, I set it up all game long. Like I might not even get to it in a game, but I just set it up every single play. I'm setting it up. And he like has like, that's where it's like the mentality of like his approach to the game isn't just like you see these guys. And this is like a Jack Sawyer type where Jack Sawyer is just like, I'm just going to run around you. I'm just going to run through you. I'm going to just maybe a spin move here or there. Like nothing really, it seems like he's setting things up. This guy sets it up. And to go get 16.5 sacks in the ACC in a major conference, you have to be able to have that. Hey, that's a Boone guy. That I'm claiming him. That's a Booner guy in this draft. I love him. Unbelievable. I watched probably like 30 minutes of his film before I hopped on today. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he has the methodical approach. You know,
very
methodical, setting it up.
And when you have the talent and you have that, it's like. It's unstoppable, especially at the next level.
It's probably, if I had to guess, like production's out of the world for, 16.5 sacks. I don't care if it's the ACC. It's better than Marshall, I guess, but still, like he had 16.5 sacks. But it's probably, I would probably, if I say there's a knock, it'd probably be what his height.
Yeah,
what is he?
6'2", 250, I think.
That would have to be like because they that's the Shamar Stewart thing. It's like 6'6", big, all this stuff.
Everything I saw today
But the
about Jamal
production's
Stewart was
there.
just massive.
That was
That's
like
a player that'll end up being like.
you know who he reminds me of? And RIP to him. But remember when Jalen Ferguson was coming out of Louisiana Tech and he like all-time leading sack producer in NCAA history. Ravens take him in the second round and he's off to a good start. Unfortunately passed away. But I think this could be a very similar situation to that where it's like, to your point, but okay, yeah, he's not 6'5", he's not Shamar Stewart, he's not Jordan Birch, he's not one of those elite specimens, but who gives a fuck if you're getting 20 and a half tackles for loss and 16 sacks? To your point,
Crazy.
It's we love Mike Green. Like, I'm not saying he's better than Mike Green, but we're going crazy over Mike Green having 16 and a half sacks in a non-Power 5 conference. He's doing the ACC against, honestly, there's very good quarterbacks in the ACC, maybe not NFL type of guys, but you look through the ACC, there's a lot of good college quarterbacks there. You look at Louisville, North Carolina State, obviously Cam Ward down there. So it's not like a weak conference when it comes to offensive talent. Going up against Marion Hampton, who we just talked about yesterday, I think there's really no weaknesses besides just, okay, he's not the biggest, fastest guy in the draft.
All right, well, we have our special guest. This man just grinds. He's an absolute
Legend.
grinder. Like, if the Lions could take John Maakaron, he'd be an easy first-round selection. Grit, determination. I mean, he's got it all. He's got some finesse, too. He's got some speed. You know, he does. And, as always, brought to you guys by BetUS, Mr. John Maakaron, publisher of Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated, the one, the only. Let's get him on here, John. What's going on, my friend?
Fellas, I might be the only media left that still likes you guys. What's happening?
Wait, Doc, real quick. I think your mic, a different mic hooked up. I believe.
Man, I got. Okay, 1 second here.
All right, you're good. You're good. And by the way, what he said is true. Doc's probably the last guy. You know what? That's why we love him. He's the best. He's been killing
grind. He's probably just getting back from Indy.
Yeah.
Got some medium steak for the first time in his life, which I saw on Twitter, which was wild to me. I because he said that he normally does it well done. Have you boys ever like went to a restaurant and ordered a well done steak?
Is that better?
Yeah.
You sound great, Doc.
This is like the last 72 hours have been crazy. But yes, absolutely a great time in Indy. I recommend it. It is like the NFL circus. Everybody's there, from the podcasters to the media to guys like me for the first time. It was a circus. But to me, I looked at it like, okay, I got a taste of what it is. It is exactly as advertised. I can't wait to talk about it. It's something that everybody should do once. But I definitely wanted to stay and talk to every edge linebacker possible. And I did that, got my fill. And now I'm going to be like everybody else, kind of sit back and watch some tape and get what everybody else says. But I can't do that for 5 days straight. And evaluations, that's for all the hardcore draft fans to go in and analyze every single talent there. There's a lot of interviews. It's an amazing experience. And all I can do is hope that everybody that followed at Detroit Podcast with our tracker, we got it all covered wall to wall. And I think people liked the questions that I was asking and the vibes that I was giving off in Indy, baby. It was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you sent me, Doc. You sent me a picture of you eating like baby food. I don't know. It was like fancy. It was fancy. I just didn't know what the hell it was. Like, can you explain? What was that? I have the photo, but what was that? What were you eating?
Listen, man, I'm going to say this. I downed so many old fashions. I don't remember who I was sending what to. There were so many contacts that I was going through. I was like, what about this? Look at this. Prospects. Who am I seeing? Who am I talking to? I have no clue. We went out a couple times, restaurants. The company was amazing. They treated us like gold. Got to meet a lot of the people. I had a steak. What else was I eating? There was a lot of places you just go in and out. It was wall to wall crazy, but it is a good time it was good too. I got to meet some of the other writers as well. So I don't remember. If you send me the picture, I'll remember the story as it tied. But the first things first.
Got to see the picture.
Yeah. I went to St. Elmo's. I tried everything. Got a steak at a different place, and I definitely ingested the shrimp cocktail. That might have been the shrimp cocktail that clears your sinuses. But I did the full experience in the 3 days I was there, and I'm ready to talk Lions football. I think that the Lions, there was a lot that came about with the coordinators, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes. There's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
And especially now too, Brad Holmes just talked to NFL Network. things are coming into shape regarding how this offseason is going to go. Let's go, boys. What caught your attention? What'd you like? What do you want to know about?
Oh, I'll say this, and I'll speak for the boys, man. Doc, you crushed today. I mean, you dominated. Every time I open Twitter, I'm seeing breaking Doc stories, Doc getting quotes, videos. We used a lot of stuff today I was like, Doc's carrying the show because we're getting clips, we're getting articles. Now we're talking to you. I'll start with something you did get today, and you asked Mike Green. I want to get to the Mike Green stuff because he's someone we've talked about a lot on the show here. I'm sure the boys, there's a ton of players. We'll start with that. The accusations, like the side stuff, the rumors. Number one, what'd you make of Mike Green being around him, getting to talk to him? And then secondly, any concern that the Lions, even though they met with him formally, that the rumors, I'll stick with that, like are going to scare them away from Mike Green?
Yeah, I don't think so, because here's the thing. He was forthright. It was wild too, because nobody had talked about it. And today was just wild because I was out last night. I get up at 5:30 this morning, and I'm going to start researching the 8 o'clock block because that had a lot of the people I wanted to talk to. And so you go through Mike Green, you do your Google search, and all of a sudden you come up with, allegation. And you're like, what's this? And you're like, I've never seen anybody talk about it. And I'm like, is anybody going to ask it? Should I ask it? I'm like, first and foremost, I learned that from reporters that you got to get there like 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, because the media just swarms in front of everybody. And it's one of those situations where it's packed. You're like, 50 people could be right behind you. So right away, it kind of, I noticed these reporters from all over the world, they're aggressive and they hit it right away. One of the first questions asked was, hey, Mike, what about these allegations that happened at your first school that caused you to transfer to Marshall? And he's like, they were false. And then people kind of, once that door was open, they followed up with a bunch of questions. They were sexual assault allegations, but there was no legal matter taken. He transferred. There was just basically an inquiry and a question that was arisen based on actions, but nothing ever happened. Nothing came of it, but he transferred partly due to the old coaching staff kind of changing. He felt like, okay, a better opportunity would be suited at Marshall, and nothing's come of it. And he was forthright. He was candid. He's like, I categorically deny everything. And you don't hear that kind of candid answer. So for Mike Green, it's something that he was asked, like, our team's asking you about it. Yes. And guess what? All I can say is that if the Lions are researching Mike Green, there's going to be some expense that you got to go dig into the history, dig into who's saying what about him. But based on his discussion, look, at this point in time, you're always innocent until proven guilty. He denied every single thing. And at that point in time, you just got to go going forward. I just think the challenge with Mike Green, I don't think he's going to be there for the Lions at 28. I think he's a good player. I like the tape. I love what he saw, but I don't think the Lions are going to invest making a trade to move up to get him. So it's going to be interesting to see, but he was candid. It was talked about. You can go check it out and you can make your decisions for yourself. But I just think that total picture, I don't think that he's going to be a Detroit Lion.
Wow. All right. Hey, way to be transparent there, Doc. I do want to ask you today, you actually, within the last couple hours, you said you had spoke with some people and you had put out how Myles Garrett or the Detroit Lions actually reached out to the Cleveland Browns about Myles Garrett. They obviously didn't return not just Detroit Lions calls, but anyone who reached out to them about Myles Garrett. How do you see kind of this situation playing out with Myles Garrett? And then even like a step forward with that, Doc, obviously the last 48 hours, Brad yesterday mentioning like, hey, it's probably not realistic. Do you see if that opens the back up, Brad kind of pursuing that again? And then if not, and it doesn't open up, how do you see him approaching this edge position after kind of hearing everything this week?
Yeah, I want to set the table for everybody because everybody gets into their camps. Everybody gets into they blend their facts with their opinions, and then they start making judgments against people that are giving their opinions on what they want. First and foremost, boys, I take it and I believe that you, me, everybody would want Myles Garrett. If you're sitting there going, if you can't formulate the opinion that the Detroit Lions need Myles Garrett, something's wrong with you. Now, there's some people that automatically go to, well, how realistic is it? Well, here's the thing, guys, okay? Brad Holmes is not trying to pay top dollar for Myles Garrett. So there's one camp, okay? And here's the thing that these dollar store people that give their opinions on Twitter that aren't worth a damn don't understand is one side has the price they want to pay. The other side has an asset. So what will happen is both sides will take the stance of negotiating. So here's what's going on. The Browns have stated at this point in time clearly, from the general manager to the head coach, we are not dealing this asset, period, which is going to drive up his asking price. You have a commodity that 15 teams want. So naturally, it's not news that Myles Garrett, people are going to call about him. Brad Holmes has dealt with Barry before for the Zadarius Smith trade. Okay, so clearly everyone knows that the Lions are interested in Myles Garrett. That's not news. But the interest level right now of the Browns is 0 to entertain any kind of talk. So that was if you read Lions on SI today, you got what people are telling me. That, hey, the Browns are not making these calls back going, hey, give me this now. Right now, their answer directly is, hey, we're not addressing it. We are not dealing them publicly. We are not giving it up. We are not giving up Myles Garrett. That's the stance. Now, the stance of the Lions is going to be, here's the problem, which Brad Holmes just said on NFL Network. He was interviewed. We got to sign our own guys. We got Jamison Williams looking potentially at a franchise tag, boatload of money. You got Kirby Joseph potentially needing a lot of money. You got Aiden Hutchinson going to break the bank. So Brad Holmes publicly stated, hey, we got to pay our own guys. There's probably not enough money to even make it happen. So Brad Holmes cannot pay top dollar for Myles Garrett on the open market. He would love to, clearly, and I think he took my question maybe in not the exact spirit in which I wanted to, but I think he got there, which was my opinion was, I think I prefaced it with a nice statement. I said to Brad, hey, Brad, you built a great roster. Many people think you're one guy away to win the Super Bowl. And then he went into, why do I need one guy? Why don't I get 3 edge rushers? And I should have just said, yeah, a great general manager could get 5. I hope you get 5. I should have kept it, but I kept it like in line with hoping he would stay and conversate. And I said, it's difficult. And he said, yeah, but he definitely wanted it known that the Lions don't ignore pass rushers, but it's just not that easy. Well, no duh. You know what I mean? And so had there not been 50 other people there ready to shout out more questions, I would have just said, hey, I know it's tough, but that's why they pay you the big bucks, is to figure out how to make the best players show up on the Lions. But, sometimes the odds are stacked against you and it's tough. But guys, the door is not closed on Myles Garrett getting traded. All right. Teams will start to, when their rosters start shaking out and the desperation's there and the calls start flowing, the offers will start getting made. Okay. And then Andrew Berry's going to have a task because he's going to have a player that's not going to show up. So typically it lends to my opinion that he's going to be traded, but not to the Lions. I just don't see it happening because of the cost of what's going on. But I do think the Lions are interested. They know they need a pass rusher, but there's a chance that they could get one deep in this draft. So everything's going as it should. The Lions don't want to pay 2 first-round picks. They don't want to pay a player. They don't want, and they don't want to kind of go outside their comfort zone of making a splash. His answer was not the best in regards to, well, what if he gets injured? Well, so what? That's what happens. You still got to start the year with the best roster possible. And if you know what I mean? So him saying, well, why should I just stop at 1? Well, clearly I know that you're not going to get 2 pass rushers. You're not going to get 3 superstar pass rushers. I just want the 1. My question was, many people think you're 1 guy away. And I just think that he can't do that. He can't say that. I get the professional reason why. If you say that, then it's like, okay, we're all in. And he has to worry about injuries. He's got to worry about so many different factors. What if there's a fit? What if there's not a fit? So he's never going to say, hey, we're 1 guy away and this is the guy, because that puts all the pressure on Myles Garrett. It puts all the pressure on the Lions. They don't want to put it like that with one of the early questions from me, but I asked a point blank question. I think you're 1 player away. This is why I think you don't have a Super Bowl team right now. As constructed right now, this Lions team is not a Super Bowl team, but they got an offseason to try. But guys, check out what the story was. Simple. Everything Brad Holmes said about free agency, or what he told NFL Network. And it's clear right now, the priority for the Lions right now, the draft and paying their own dudes. Once that gets settled, now here's the question, and I'll ask you guys and we'll talk about it. Are you willing to sacrifice a potential dynasty for Aiden Hutchinson to make $45 million a year. It's a tough conversation because he's a defensive player of the year candidate. But if you're gritty and you're a GM that's a little bit of a hard ass, you just say, Aiden, you don't get a contract. Sorry. We need we need 3 other guys. And you don't do it. Jameson Williams, sorry. You don't do it. But it sends a bad signal. It's tough to do. But at the same token, the free agency situation is not going to be big spending to the degree that people want because of the fact that the Lions players, they're good players. They're all getting fat checks. So Myles Garrett to the Lions, I don't think is dead. Unlikely, very unlikely that it happens. It would go against a lot of things. And just you guys are seeing it logically. The Lions don't have unlimited funds to get everything, but once the season starts and Myles Garrett's not there, the leverage shifts a little bit toward the teams that are trying to get him.
Hey, I think that's a very fair stance, Doc. We just talked about Myles Garrett. We just talked about Mike Green. On the flip side of that, now teams are going to be having to be saying, okay, now we got to try to stop a Myles Garrett or a Mike Green. Every team in the NFL that needs an edge rusher is having the same conversation. I think the real answer is how are you going to block these guys? I think offensive line is always extremely important, but with how much the front seven has been emphasized this year, offensive line is going to become a little bit more important. So how do you think the Lions address that in the draft? Because Brad Holmes usually walks out of the NFL draft with an offensive lineman. I know they haven't met formally yet because offensive linemen, I don't believe they've had their media day. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, if I missed out on anything. But where do you think the Lions approach the offensive line in the draft? Do you think it's early? Do you think they try to get depth late? Where do you think Brad goes with it?
Oh, you set me up like a layup, partner. Well, first, happy birthday to you. I think I got it the day of. Congrats, you did. Another year around the sun. I value your opinions and your willingness to take stances and debate people. It's great. Congrats, man. And look, I got a crush. I found a lineman that I like that has not given up sacks, that comes from the factory, and one that I scouted already. Josh Connerly is sick, and I hope he's there. He is a player that can do a lot of good things. Recently mocked, I think he was at 26, 27 in Kuiper's mock draft. Goes to Oregon. That's where Penei Sewell was. That's an offensive line factory. I love what I'm seeing. Only gave up 2 sacks over 3 years. Right now, it's projected to the Rams in a lot of mocks. But if he's there, I think he can do a lot of different things, and he can be somebody that can help this offensive line. I do think there's players that could potentially be there for the Lions in the first round. Now, that's the thing too. That's what's going to be fun is that we're talking early. We're going to get some names. And I'm looking at I can't wait to see how the drills shake out, but there's some great players that this Lions team can stack. And I do think there's going to be some potential additions in the draft from the offensive line that Brad Holmes looks at and says, okay, it's interesting too. Do they wait and see if, you can stopgap it and see if the Rams just simply cut Jonah Jackson, you bring him back. But there's a lot of options for the Detroit Lions. First and foremost, the right side I think is good. I think that Christian Mahogany and Penei Sewell, you're good. Now the question mark's going to be: are they going to start to look at the left tackle spot? Are they going to say, "Hey, is Taylor Decker's days numbered? Do we need the left tackle of the future? Do we start that process? Where's Manu?" So there's going to be some things that potentially are going to need to be factored. But there's some linemen in this draft that people are going to talk about that I think will have a great opportunity to be a member of the Detroit Lions. I just almost certainly would expect at least one of the picks will be dedicated to the offensive line. I would not be surprised if it's in the first round. I know everybody thinks edge now, right away, pick 28. I would go there too. But, man, it was one of those deals where I was excited to see there was a prospect that just kind of made everybody wait. It was crazy this morning, but I'm very curious about, and I think it was, I'm not going to pinpoint it, but there was a lineman that I just watched film on too, Gray Zabel, that is also very much a solid player that a lot of people are talking about. But you're absolutely right. The offensive line is a concern just as much as the defensive line. It's critical for Jared Goff. You guys know it. So it will be addressed, I think, most likely in the draft, but I would not be surprised as well, a low-risk free agent as well, too. That's affordable.
Yeah, I mean, Doc, I want to ask you, look at the new background. Huh? You like that?
Come on now,
I had to update that. I want to ask you about the linebackers because they met with a ton of them, a lot of outside linebackers. And I think to me and to the fellas as well, we talked about it, maybe foreshadowing a potential Derek Barnes departure. Or do you think they bring him back and still draft a linebacker? Where are you? And maybe even a linebacker in the first round. Where are you at on all those things?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think Barnes is going to have an attachment to Detroit because of Anceloni. We've talked about it. I think that clearly Kelvin Shepard being the DC, it's going to favor Derek Barnes coming back. But yeah, he's coming back from injury. But man, the guy that jumped off the pitch, I think everybody's talking about, and you saw the eyes from Terry and Arnold. So that means he's on board. Dude, you turn on the film 5 minutes, you're like, whoa, Jihad Campbell, add the Campbell department. That dude, 117 tackles, 5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, willing to play Mike, Sam. He's being talked about when you talk to the scouts and people that looked at his film at Alabama. They're like, that dude can do it all, and he's willing to do it all. And he impressed everybody today in his talk. So I was just like, wow, this dude jumped off the page. This is what you come to the combine for, to start learning about these guys. And then you start seeing, oh my goodness, what he can do out there. A guy, and here's when you guys start to look, the blessing of having the opportunity to sit down with Kelvin Shepard for half an hour. The versatile Lions like guys that are not just, hey, this is a will linebacker. This is just a clear Mike. If you can do many different things, that's a guy you maybe could say, hey, maybe package a pick for and move up if you need to, because he's got it all. I think he's going to jump off the page. And hey, if you guys are just starting, because I know these fellas are hardcore. They're looking at it all day, every day. If you're just starting to know who's interested in things like that, just go to our tracker. The guys even shared it too. If you go to Crunch Time, their Twitter page or the Lions on SI site, we have a tracker going live every minute of every day. If there's a meeting we know about or someone that we work with tells us, hey, it goes up, you'll know at least who the Lions are preliminarily looking at. So those guys potentially, there's a chance, could be drafted by the Lions. It's solid. It'll be up. It'll be updated regularly. So refresh it, peek at it, and then start watching the film. But Jihad Campbell is somebody that's interesting. But it's going to be a tough competition because there's some guys a little bit ahead that the Lions like, but there's always room for a nice draft pick. I think, you hope Malcolm Rodriguez and Derek Barnes come back healthy, but there could be some surprises as well. But I think Derek Barnes ends up being a Lion, and I would not be upset at all. And if you guys are watching, if you guys get out there, when he's out there, Jihad told the reporters he's excited to show that his footwork and ability to cover in space, that was his desired goal for his workout. So pay attention. Many people say you're getting a Swiss Army knife linebacker that could do a lot of different things. So if you guys get out there, highlight his name, enjoy his workout, because he's got something to prove. Basically, he looks like a Lion right now.
Yeah, Doc, can I just, you were not even just talking about the players, but obviously all the coaches spoke yesterday, and yep. I don't know how many people actually saw, but Kelvin Shepard and John Morton both spoke kind of to the media. It seemed like it was kind of the smaller group there at some hotel or something, I'm sure, Doc. What did you take out of those meetings and kind of hearing, especially I would say this with John Morton, because we know kind of what Kelvin's about and what he's going to bring, but with John Morton kind of being a new piece to this offense and this coaching staff, what are your thoughts on what you heard from him yesterday?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was in the convention center. It was a nice opportunity to sit down in a more informal setting, but it's still in a media session where we all sat around and fired off kind of the questions you would expect, like your philosophy, your mentor, and stuff like that. It was half an hour and it was very insightful. Basically, it's like an opportunity for them to get to know us. Kelvin knows everybody. So it's a little bit more of okay, this is your job now. You have a different title. So we need to learn a little bit more about you and what you're thinking about your philosophy and stuff like that. So a couple of questions I asked Kelvin were, okay, we just saw, and he gave me the standard coach speak, but it was good. I said to him, okay, what's your philosophy about blitzing? Like, tell me, what do you think about aggression? Because I just saw the Eagles win the Super Bowl without blitzing. And he's like, John, it's one of those deals where I'm a coach that, just like everybody else, I'm going to tailor a scheme. It's not about the scheme. It's not about what Kelvin wants. It's, hey, first of all, I need to know who's on my team, and then I'm going to learn what they do well, and then we'll go from there. And so, but I do think that he's going to want to, first and foremost, really address the linebackers and make sure they're on point. I do think the Lions front four has to be improved. You have to win more. You have to blitz less. And I do think that what you're going to see is a defense that's going to continue to be aggressive, but with the hopes of some young talent that's going to get to the quarterback and win some battles one-on-one and have more of an opportunity. So Kelvin was established. Everything you think you would want to hear from him, we learned. We learned about the impact of some of the coaches and some of the people that were influential to get him where he was, but he's on point. Now, on the other side, John Morton, a little bit, like I said, when we talked last time, just based on what he talked about with Dan Miller and with us, it's not as comfortable sitting there, but I think as he realized, okay, we weren't going to just the first question was not, hey, you bombed out with the Jets. What happened? It was more like, a little bit more easing into it, but he was candid and he was honest, and he's more of the, I don't want to say I'm saying in the way he presents himself, he's more of the traditional coach that kind of would prefer to be in the background and not be all up in everybody's business, like talking. Some of his answers were shorter, but I fired off like 5-6 questions. I said, hey, what's it going to be like working with Jared Goff in his prime? He's definitely excited. I said, hey, you got a lot of mouths to feed. You got a lot of people on offense to kind of get the ball to. He's like, I got to tailor an offense that's going to get to where it needs to be. And then I asked about Jameson Williams. I wrote about that, the answer specifically to that. But John Morton just wants to keep, but here's the thing though. The part that, kind of came to light is that him and David Shaw and things like that still heavily, I think, going to be looking at this passing game. And I'm not so certain, I want it to be a little bit more run centric, but I think that there's going to be ways in which this offense is going to be tailored to, hey, whatever is needed on a week-to-week game plan. What John Morton clearly stamped is he loves spending all the hours game planning as to what to do to attack an opponent. And I think the first things first is he didn't call out Jared Goff, but he called out the issue. He said, first and foremost, we probably can win playoff games if we protect the football. And he said it like 3-4 times, protect the football. That's key, is that we got to make sure we don't turn the ball over. So for John Morton, it's going to be an uphill climb because many people think that Ben Johnson was a big reason why this offense shined. Yeah, but I do think John Morton, the drop-off is going to be there a little bit early on, but I do think that the staples of this offense, working with Tashard Choice, David Shaw, Scotty Montgomery, a point of emphasis too is I asked Dan Campbell, one of my first questions to him was, what's Scotty's role now that he's going to work with the receivers? He's like, Scotty's going to be a heavy, kind of the lead dog in regards to the passing game. So there's going to be some, wrinkles and things like that. But I thought John Morton handled himself pretty well, but he was more blunt to the point, not as elaborate, but something that was revealed, which is funny. Picture this. 20 years ago, the fastest combine runner at 4.39, which he said was 4.36, in a mullet in old school attire.
Yeah, Johnny Mo had wheels.
Morton
he had wheels.
The fastest runner at the combine. So go look it up. He said it's funny. He said, yeah, he has the distinction of being a speedster in his younger days. So it was a good interview, a good opportunity to learn about the Lions OC. And I do think that he's got a taller task because he's got a lot more talent to work with. So it's a big risk that, people, and he did address the Jets situation. He said, I wasn't ready. I didn't have the ingredients. I got the ingredients now. Let's go.
Yeah, Doc, I didn't know the Johnny Mo show had wheels like that. Not going to lie. Could be keeping up there with Jameson Williams. Going to ask you a similar question kind of that I did last time. And I know you're going to be all over this one because we've been through the discussion last draft a lot. And I know you already kind of hinted at it. I asked you about offensive line last time. What about wide receiver now? We're looking at Tim Patrick possibly leaving, could possibly stay. But I don't think Tim Patrick is somebody that's a long-term option. And you also have, unfortunately, the reality of the question of, are you going to re-sign Jameson Williams? Because if Jameson Williams wants to be re-signed, it's not going to be cheap. It could be a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins type of scenario. The Lions don't have that type of money that Cincinnati's pulling out right now. So when you look at this draft, a lot of wide receivers. Are there any wide receivers you like that are kind of going under the radar? And where do you think they attack that in the draft? Same thing I kind of asked you. Do you think they go early on or late for depth?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, real fast to Tour. Guess what, buddy? I can confirm that he said that. He didn't say Jared Goff is the reason we lost, but he talked about turnovers. And guess what? I got it on tape. So yes, he did say it because I was in the room. I was there. You were not. So he said,
Talk to him, dog.
We cannot turn the ball over. So let's infer, genius, what that meant. Clearly in the play. And he said, man, we could have been in the Super Bowl. So what is he talking about? He's talking about the playoffs. So let's pull your head out of your ass and stop being a homer. He did say that. He did say that. And let's be clear, Jared Goff knows it too, because I'm going to ask him the first time I see him next time, hey, how much did those turnovers eat at you in that? So he's got to step it up. And everybody knows it. Jared Goff's not going to hide from the fact he turned the ball over too much. Clearly, John Morton said it 5 times, 3 times to us and twice to Dan Miller. We all know that Jared Goff was a big part of why they lost. Not the whole reason, but he was a big factor. And I just think that let's not hide away. Jared's not hiding. He knows where the situation lies in regards to where this football team needs. And remember, John Morton emphasized, he said, yeah, let's get back to, hey, we need to kind of, we need to make sure that we don't turn the ball over. So, and that's why I'm hoping that they run the ball a little bit more. So we'll see. Now, wide receiver is interesting because I did have a chance to have the last question with Dan. I wanted to ask about what did you think about the offensive skill positions, but I think that he kind of blew it off and said, hey, I haven't looked at it yet. I'm curious to see if they will draft a receiver. I think they like what they see with Jamo Amon-Ra and Tim Patrick. There are, I think it's not the best receiver class. I think that the rankings of depth people are looking at right now are they love the defensive line, they love the tight ends, and they love the depth at running back. So it's going to be interesting to see in regard to the wideouts that get drafted. I'm not so certain that that's going to be the priority, especially with a new coordinator, is to develop one, especially with what you got. But it's going to be intriguing with the draft where the certain positions are going to go in regards to wideouts. It's interesting. I tried to also ask Dan about Travis Hunter. He wanted to, he blew me off there too. So I was like, man, one of those deals where wideout's going to be key because you look at it too. Everybody needs young players to restock, right? But at the same token, the tough part is that Jared Goff takes time to develop. It just takes a little bit of time with the chemistry. You're going to have a new offense. So are you going to be willing to go up there and do that? And outside of that, I'm just looking at real fast. I know a lot of people, the buzz there was about Ashton Gentry. People are looking at him in regards to what he can do. The situation.
I think he's a first round pick, Doc. Top 15 pick, Ashton Gentry. Okay.
I do. Everybody has him as a top 15 player. Everybody has, a lot of these, edge rushers going and doing their thing. I do think that he is, I think the player that everybody was talking about that's intriguing, but I feel like it's not really a lion is Emeka Egbuka. A lot of people are talking about, what he can do. I think he's going to be there maybe in the late first round, second round. I don't think he's going to be somebody the Lions are going to target. So, it's going to be interesting to see as I think the wide receiver position will be intriguing to see when the talk comes as to who meets with the Lions. And that's the position probably, especially with quarterback too, the position where we want to see the numbers at the combine. We haven't seen them yet. The workouts start tomorrow, actually. So I would be surprised. I would be surprised if they drafted a receiver, especially early. I think that they would probably wait because of just the development, the time, and you realize this offensive guys is plug and play. I think the need is offensive line. You could get 2 of them. And you maybe look to free agency and see what happens if you can get somebody affordably. But a draft pick is tough because of the development. It takes, I think you probably could, it's fair to say 2 years to one of those 2 years probably to even get the rhythm needed. Look, it took JMO, who's a first-round talent, a season and a little more to be able to acclimate. So I would be a little bit surprised. I think it's a lower priority on the Lions draft board.
Well, speaking of a high priority, but the player, I from what I've seen, the Lions fan base a little split on. There's a portion of people that don't believe the player's worth a first-round pick. There's a portion that believes he's the perfect fit. Jack Sawyer, he met with the Lions formally. What have you got to see from kind of being up there, seeing Jack? I think this week, Doc's a huge week for Jack. He's a fringe first-round guy. If he has a big combine, I think he can certainly sneak into that first round. We all love him. What do you make of just being out there seeing him?
Because they're stuck in a rut.
I like I said, he's a winner. And he's somebody that I think has the grit mentality that Dan Campbell would like. You know, I think that he's got a little bit more of an uphill climb in regards to some things that are some of his weaknesses. But, you know, you can't beat competitiveness. And here's what Dan Campbell's going to love. When he sits down and he sits down and talks to Jack, he's going to be like, dude, I love the fact that you fought those guys. What did it mean to you to see them rip that? What did it mean to you? I mean, the question is going to be asked. What did it mean to you when you see Michigan taking the flag and planting it in your stadium? And then you see that publicly where he's like, you know, getting up and pissed off. And then you go back and you're a warrior in the college playoff and you win. That's something that's going to appeal to Dan Campbell. Somebody that, hey, you faced adversity. You lost all your games to Michigan. And you were an integral figure in defending your home turf. That's grit. That's a definition of an intangible that the Lions would like. So I do think that the good old boy connection would be fun to listen. It would be a fun situation to see what they talked about. He would be a fine player, and you do look at the linebackers because of the fact that the defensive coordinator is a linebacker. But I'm curious to see too now the influence that Kelvin Shepherd is going to have on this draft when he gets a chance to look at it too. So we'll see.
Hey, Doc, I want to ask you just kind of broad question here, because especially with the next few days, offensive line, receivers, all of that, and all of the research you've been doing in the homework, what are just is there a couple guys to keep your eye on over the next 2 or 3 days? Or like, it's kind of like, I'll say this, I'm trying to think of the word. What's the right word? Like a secret dot guy. I don't know. Like just someone that no one's really talking about that.
Under the radar?
Under the radar. I could not think of that. I don't know.
Yeah, hey, I got you.
Just a couple under the radar guys the next 2 or 3 days, especially while we're down there, for the people to kind of keep an eye on when they're tuning in to the combine this weekend. Yeah,
no doubt. And of course I'm watching porn. Of course. You know, I can talk football and watch porn at the same time. Guys, there are literally 500 players in my head and I'm coming off a 3-hour sleep. You think I have every prospect in my head? No, I got them all on a screen here. Linebacker, safety, this, under the radar, this, and all that. So it's good. I would today, like I said, for me, I've been like, I hardcore looked at the edge rushers. And I thought that right now, the two names, they're not under the radar, but these are the guys that I think, look, to me, in my opinion, you know, we're going to have a couple weeks after the combine to dig deep into all this. I think that you guys are going to love and see all the players and get a deep knowledge. But I looked at 2 players that just caught 3 players really that caught my attention. Nick Scourton, I think, is somebody that everybody was impressed with when we spoke to him today. Definitely check out his numbers. I'm disappointed in the fact that Mikael Williams is not going to work out. He revealed, so for those that are paying attention, he revealed that he played this season, still productive, but he had a lingering ankle issue. He's not working out. So I love him. I mocked him actually to the Lions in the Sports Illustrated beat writer mock draft, had an opportunity there. But the guy that everybody's talking about in Indy, and everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute here. This guy sticks out.
Now here's a guy.
The guy that I think is going to be somebody that's going to be definitely paid attention to. 6'2", 247 pounds, Donovan Izuraku. Man, he had 16 and a half sacks. And
that
sticks out. And everybody was like, whoa, 21 tackles for loss, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Everybody was like, whoa, that's a Lion. And you turn on the tape, that's a Lion. And
Let's go, Doc.
I think that you should pay attention to him. He's the early candidate as a player that stuck out, that people are going to put on their lists as a combine riser or an interesting name to pay attention to for the Lions. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that when you see what the Lions need, okay, it's not the final piece, but you need to get edge rushers. You need to get some guys that are going to be able to win. You know, when you see, and of course we can't talk about the Eagles because they're further along. They had high quality draft picks, but they were able to win with a front four, and the Lions haven't had that. They've had to blitz at a high rate. Well, you can do that. And you got guys like Branch, Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu that could do it, but it's a risk. You don't get home, get a mobile quarterback, boom, defensive football 101. You blitz, there's an extra defender, there's an extra offensive player free that any smart quarterback can find. So good luck, but pay attention to Donovan. He's moving up the boards, and people are very much intrigued with what he did. He generated the most buzz, I think, from the tape, and so what people think the Lions definitely need.
I literally, Doc, before 10 minutes before you hopped on, I said this is a guy I want in Detroit. I stamped him as a Booner guy. Booner guy. And I was like, I want this guy. I don't know why. It's crazy. Someone put it in my head about a week ago. Someone put it in the chat, and I planted a seed. And the last few days, I keep seeing him, and I'm looking like 16 and a half sacks. And then today, his interview, Doc, I watched the whole 15 minutes of it, and this guy he needs to be in Detroit tomorrow. You need to get this guy in Detroit. He is unbelievable. Maybe 6'2" is tough, but figure it out. He's just too good.
Yeah, Lions guys
move up the board.
Yeah, Lions guys are clear. They get established, and this draft. Listen, it's interesting because there's a lot of people now wondering, all right, can the Lions maintain their level of competitiveness? I think they will. The scheme's in place, the talent's in place, but the question mark's going to be now free agency. Here's what Brad said. Our dollars can only go so far. We can't pay. He said publicly now, we can't pay everybody. We're going to have first world problems. And that, to me, this is just opinion, not reporting or anything. This is my opinion. I think that means Levi, he gets an offer, probably gone. Carlton Davis, he gets a fat offer, probably gone. So I think that you realize that you have to make tough decisions. And I think that they're going to rank the guys that they drafted first as a priority, guys that are healthy and things like that. But the issue is, I do think Levi Onwuzurike, based on his merit, would earn another year in Detroit, but not at $16 million a year, not at the highest rate possible if he's a free agent. And I think Carlton Davis will also test the situation too, because guys, Kirby is going to bust the bank and Aiden's going to bust the bank. So those are situations in which the Lions are not going to change, where, hey, they want to reward their draft picks that play well. That keeps the locker room happy, and they're going to give guys raises and opportunities. So this is now the time too. And Brad Holmes lost some key figures from the front office who were some good scouts. So it's going to be tough to rework a system to get everybody back in place to be where they need to be. So I'm fascinated to see how they rework it, but I'm hoping there's a little bit of excitement with the free agent moves, but I think it's going to be lower key, guys 28 to 31, 1-year deal, kind of in the mold of like what you saw, maybe coming off of an injury. You never know. So we'll see how it plays out.
Doc, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here because honestly, big news. Detroit Pistons, Detroit basketball is back. They're coming off their 8th straight win, a 20-point win over the Boston Celtics in LCA. I don't know, Doc, if I would have been told that before the season started, I would have been like, oh yeah, Jason Tatum's probably out. Pistons had the best game of the year, but the Pistons have just been on a roll recently, Doc. What has been your takeaway through this 8-game window that we've just seen?
Yeah, no doubt. Just here real fast, another name that popped up as a linebacker that I highlighted that also talked about the stuff that he did in the work with against Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Demetrius Knight Jr. from South Carolina. Pay attention to that name. Yep. He's a linebacker that people think is athletic and can do some things. Pay attention to his workout, put his name down, and as a player to watch this week as well. Now, the Pistons, man, guys, it's fun, right? It's fun when you have a coach that, listen, coaching is 101. Establish a bond with your players. Establish the, hey, this is what our standard is. Meet the standard or else. Sounds good. JB Bickerstaff comes from basketball lineage. I think that you got a raw deal in Cleveland. And first and foremost, credit to, look, we've given Mr. Gorse a hell of a lot of shit for the way in which he conducted business. He tried, and he kind of gives off the incompetent vibe, but he scratched a check for north of $70 million to get a guy gone. That's crazy in my mind, but everybody recognized, dude, you hired a guy that didn't want to be here, and you did it because you gave him money. So they recognize, oh man, we have messed up royally. Let's blow this situation out of the water. And Troy Weaver was the easiest decision to move on from in the history of sports. I couldn't believe. And remember, guys, when people come at you, I was saying since the first couple years, this guy is not a talent evaluator. This guy's not a GM. This guy was a glorified scout. And when he came to become a GM, he focused on projects and centers, and he wanted to play 1984 basketball in 2017. And then you had all the keyboard warriors saying, oh, you're not a basketball guy. Listen, I don't need to be a geeknik. I don't need to be a guy that shows up at LCA 40 times a year to realize this guy can't bring and put together a roster. It's pretty clear. They went backwards. What more do you need? And you still had. So remember, when you are debating sports with people that are nut huggers, just remind them, hey, you supported the Killian Hayes pick. Everybody in 5 minutes knew that was an embarrassment. Everybody knew Troy Weaver wasn't capable of his job. And there were people screaming it from the high heavens. And there were still people going, patience. No, Troy can do it. No, look what he did. Let Troy cook. Yeah, okay. Troy burned the house down. And thank goodness the fire extinguisher in Mr. Gorse paid the headache to go away. You start with a leader in Trajan Langdon is like, I want this. And guess what? Really, in the end, I like to take this 60 seconds to continue to trash Troy Weaver. How can you evaluate basketball as an executive and sit in your chair and pick and pick and pick and have resources financially, and you can't find a dude that can put the basketball in the basket? Like, you couldn't find 3 shooters to shoot the ball, and you had Dwayne Casey and you had John Beeline. You had these coaches that were shooting experts, and they were trying. And for whatever reason, they couldn't understand the mission, which of basketball is, when I take a shot and I can't make a 3, maybe I should stop shooting them. Well, guess what? Trajan figured out the secret. Hey, let me get a veteran that can score. Hey, he looked at, he was clicking the button like me, like this, right? He wasn't looking at porn, maybe like someone else. He was clicking the button going, let's look at this 3-point percentage. Maybe somebody over 35% or somebody that can be a veteran. So they get Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway. What do you know? You unlocked Cade Cunningham. So kudos. They, first and foremost, I will own, I was a little bit too judgmental on Cade. I'm a superstar person. Kobe. I'm like number 1 pick, like Kobe, Shaq, big time, LeBron. Cade is not that, but he's upper echelon. He's not average. So I was wrong. I was not way too soon but that was just from desperation because we watched so much shitty basketball. And I'm a basketball fan. Grew up as a bad boy. My early memories of sports, 89, under the covers, watching Portland, the Portland series, the Lakers series, getting all mad when they boned Bill Laimbeer and called the most disgusting foul that never occurred in the history of basketball. The league screwed the Pistons. They should have had a three-peat. And so that's where I grew up as a Pistons fan, and watching them just from afar and understanding that, hey, basketball. And here's the thing, too, which is fun. Congrats to them for winning. Good to beat Boston. The fans are into it. Here's the thing, though. The Pistons have always been kind of like that going to work mentality. They got to construct a team. And, you've always needed that kind of Batman and Robin situation. And now you at least got Cade Cunningham, who's emerged. And now you just need more support around him that's young and talented. And I think Duran and Holland, those are young guys that I think people are gravitating towards. And this group is, guess what, guys? Relatable. They're gritty. They're nice. They play good team basketball. They play effectively. And now, hey, just like everybody's going to say, don't let the Pistons get hot, guys. Don't let them get hot. Don't let them get belief. Look out. Pistons are coming, led by Trajan Langdon. It's good to see. Everybody should support them. And F the Celtics. Good. Go home. Hopefully, I hope their flight gets delayed 6 hours and they sit on the tarmac and think about the ass whooping they just took.
Well, I want to ask you about, because you guys put out an article about it, and the NFLPA, Dan Campbell, A+. The players gave him the grade. He's one of a couple head coaches in the league, notably Kevin O'Connell in the division, of the other one that got an A+ amongst his players and other players. What do you make of that? What does that mean to have a guy like Dan that just players continuously love him? Carlton goes on a podcast, says he's the best coach he's ever played for, or his favorite coach, whatever verbiage he used. But how significant is that? And I think they also got like a B- on the cafeteria. What's going on in the cafeteria? But first, the Dan Campbell thing.
Yeah, no, first and foremost, the NFLP, I was like, no, inside thing. You got your stories for the day and you got all these like notes, and you're like a guy like me who's just scribble stuff all over the place, and you got to piece it all together again. You're like, oh my God, all these, there were like 15 audio content I got. I'm like, oh my God. And then you see the alert and I'm like, no. I'm like, Christian, just write this, please. I can't put this all together. I can't even think straight. I got like all these names. I had to get up at 7 o'clock, 5:30, get up, eat at 7, get over there by 8 o'clock. I'm like, man, that was the last thing I needed because people like that article. But look, what's going on in the cafeteria? Well, first and foremost, let's start with the positive. Dan Campbell, everybody loves him. Why? He's real, he's honest, and he's relatable. Look, he answers a question, doesn't answer it. Look, he actually, when you see that clip of him going, hey, I'm here to see you, that was my colleague, Grant Cohn. And he doesn't know Grant from a hole in the wall, but he knows Grant is filming and he's asking a question that's kind of unusual. He asked Dan, and he asked all the head coaches the same question because the 49ers coach didn't show up. So he's like, my theme is what do you get out of coming to the combine? And Dan points to him and goes, to see you, boss. And he's to see you. And Grant, I'm like, Grant, of course. But Dan is relatable. He's funny. He's energetic. People gravitate towards him. Number one thing with the coach, it's all that people want is, hey, tell it to me straight. If I'm playing well, Carlton Davis said it and everybody said it and echoed it. If I'm playing well, he's there. Hey, good work. He appreciates the work you do. If you're not playing well, he's on you. Like, hey, get your shit together. And he's a real coach. But the thing that gets him the respect, look at him. The dude's built like still an NFL tight end at his age, and he's imposing. You have to respect him. How do you not respect Dan Campbell? He's a respected coach that everybody loves. A+, no questions asked. Now, the other stuff, I think that if you guys ever were to get a chance to go to the locker room, it's outdated compared to when they see the pictures of what, like, there's LED lights, there's space. It's a little cramped. Not in regards to, like, relatively speaking, it's a fairly sized locker room, but there's no bells and whistles. There's a stall and there's a bench and you sit on it and you get a locker. You know what I mean? It's not, there's no LED lights. There's no gimmicks. It's just a basic locker room. So I can see where the players are like, hey, let's look at Jerry World. Let's look at all the bells and whistles you could have with electronics and USB ports and some cool shit. It's not like that. The locker room is more gritty. So I could see where the Lions don't like the locker room. The cafeteria, digging into it, I would probably presume they like more variety, more certain, ethnic styles, or just a lot more options. So I would presume that the league and the players take it seriously. But guess what? It's a top 10 rating. It's one of those deals where it's just used to help foster people wanting to come to your organization. You're not in the bottom list anymore. You're respected. People love coming here. And that's what it means to be a culture. Players will come here because you can win and you can be coached to meet your potential. So great ratings. Check them out. NFLPA. You can check out the bottom feeders that end up, typically having, it's fun to read through it. Like some of the, like, really in the end, the Bengals are the worst of the worst. Like, they just in the past would charge people for services and try to get money from the players. God. And it was bad, but the league takes it seriously. And a lot of people paid attention to it. A lot of people pay attention to those, the surveys, and the survey says Lions are doing some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, Doc, another thing I want to bring up too. Obviously it wasn't just Lions coaches and players or people talking. There was also Ben Johnson and AG. And obviously all day today, Ben Johnson is like Jeff said it perfectly. He's on like a media tour right now, going around and saying all these different things. He brought up the stuff about Jared Goff, whether he was joking or not. What do you take of all of that and Ben Johnson? It seems like there's like this new, which as it should be, but like a new rivalry being renewed here with the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's the funny part, okay? And I'll admit it. Okay, we do play it up. We do play it up a little bit. In that, yes, it's true. It's not like he's directly saying Jared is slow, Jared's a stiff. Okay, but listen, okay, here's how I read into it as I was, because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I knew people want your perspective on it. So here's the Doc's perspective, because I think I only relate to Ben Johnson in this way. If you know me as a person, you know that we're gaining respect in my circle if I talk shit to you. Like if you see me walking, typically head down, just focus, doing the things like that. I'm a reserved guy. I'm a Pisces, slow to trust. I like to keep to myself. I handle business. I light up when I do these podcasts. I enjoy these talks, but I'm just a regular guy. When we start getting into friendships and we start developing closeness and we're friends, I start talking shit. And the funny part is, you guys would know, the media in town don't know how I think. They probably think I'm like a dickhead. So I haven't seen the Detroit news beat writer in like 2 months. So I just walk over there. He never says hi to me. So I walk over there and I go, man, I'm sad with you. And he looked at me like I was serious. He was like, why? I said, bro, my first time in Indy, and I didn't see any shit on your paper that said where I should go eat. And he looked at me like, huh? And so they don't know how to handle that. Like, they don't get that. Like, I talk shit. That's why I really got into sports. I love it. You just talk shit to people. And then his podcast host, my interaction with him is not, hi, how you doing? Hey, the first thing I ever said to him is, I look forward to not reading your shit. And he looked at me like, huh? And then when I see him, now he knows, he smiles. The first thing I tell him is, man, your podcast is boring as fuck. And I don't want to listen to it. And then the next time I see him, I go, oh, it's a little better this week. I got through 5 minutes. And then I walk off. So this is what's happening. Ben Johnson changed Jared Goff's career. They sat in meeting after meeting, and Jared wanted to be coached hard. So Ben is just talking shit. That's all he's doing. He's just saying, oh man, I get to run with an athletic quarterback. This is great. This is something I've never had. So it's true. It's nothing that Jared doesn't know about. He jokes about it. He's like, yeah, my 640 speed is going to get us to where we need to go. And that's why it's so funny. That's why everybody cheers when he goes and gets that 10-yard, his one run a game. Jared knows it. That's why he's so meticulous at knowing where his receivers need to be to overcome it. That's where he deserves the credit for being not mobile and being a traditional pocket passer. But guys, it's a cheat code. Having mobility is a cheat code. It's like having this microphone. You guys said, hey, comparatively speaking, microphones. I started talking. You didn't like what you heard. We could have did the interview that way. The beautiful microphone connected to the electronics is the cheat code. It's it makes Doc sound enjoyable. We can sit and listen to him talk junk. It's nice. That's the mobile quarterback. You don't need it. We could talk without this. I could plug in headphones. I could sit and we could find a lot of ways to talk. But this professional microphone is the cheat code. Speed, athleticism at quarterback is a cheat code. And everybody wants to be a part of it. So people are naturally, and here's what they're doing psychologically, if you can handle it. They're just projecting their own insecurity that, the Lions don't have their secret toy. We don't have one. So Ben can't talk about it. Like, don't talk about the wart that Jared Goff has. Well, Ben's going to pick it apart. He's going to talk about it. But in the end, listen, today they're probably texting each other like, hey, nice. And Ben's like, yeah, thumbs up. That's what true guys do. The guys in the media don't understand that. They just, want to type and write facts. They don't get they don't want to sit there and do that. But it's fun to do if people understand. Now, some people will look at me and just be like, that's an asshole, that's a dick. He's this way. But if you know me and you know what I'm about, do anything to help anybody. Do anything, give you the shirt off my back. But I want to talk shit. It's fun to do. And if I know something about you, oh man, it's fun as hell. The funnest thing to do is to have a group chat with people you trust. And with my friends, we're not talking about rainbows and dates and shit like that. We're making fun of each other. Like, hey man, you're blowing up the scale here. Are you hitting 350 yet? You might need to lose some weight. Or hey, do I need to kind of get you some bariatric surgery? Do I got to write a couple more stories? Like, come on, man, you can't be tipping the scale at 350, bro.
A real friendship, Doc. A real friendship.
That's real friendship, is to be able to talk shit to people. And that's what Jared, that's what Ben's doing. He's just enjoying the talk. Remember too, this is the first time he's getting the media attention. It's the first time that people are like, hey, I want to talk to you. So he's doing the rounds, and it's fun to do. It's enticing. That's why I love doing it. It's enticing to sit and talk and say whatever you want and take jabs at the people you care about. Oh, trust me, Jared is not soft either. He's going to take some jabs too, especially when next year the scoreboard will read Lions 35, Bears 20. That will be nicely texted to Ben Johnson from the Lions. No doubt about it.
Well, we appreciate you, Doc. We'll be there tomorrow, so we'll be leaning on you. And you do talk shit, I can confirm. And we love it. I mean, that's part of friendship. Accountability, and talking shit. So we love that. Guys, check out Doc. He's been doing a great job there. The amount of articles you've posted today and content you've posted, guys, check out Doc on X at Detroit Podcast and check out Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. We appreciate you always, Doc.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And hopefully, Jeff, with your continued pursuit of grinding and doing the Jeff Iafrate show, you can get out of the 1-2 slot room and you can start playing in the $10 slots. I know that the cheap bets you were making in Vegas are not going to move the needle. But listen, keep grinding, and eventually you can gamble like a real man.
Yeah, no.
He said like a real man.
No, yeah, no, Doc's right. I am not a big gambler. There he goes. Yeah, no, I.
It's all right to be frugal, Hefe. Especially at this stage right now. We got to save our guap.
I always said I'm one of the most unluckiest human beings. It's like you got to just admit it, And I don't win much, so I think I've just accepted no way.
Terry McLaurin is prime example. Dude had 14 touchdowns this year, 15 touchdowns, whatever it was. And anytime Jeff bet on him,
it was
Jeff's. He thought the worst player in the NBA or the NFL was Terry McLaurin, and he was one of the best wide receivers of the season. But it was like the only times Jeff paid attention to Terry McLaurin, he was just bad. It was quite honestly. It was
that was my. I was
kind of impressive.
I was butthurt.
Lions when you step into Ford Field.
Yeah, that's tough. That you'll never be able to go to a Lions game again in your life.
That's fair. Jason says, "Do look how much hair you have." Hey, Jason. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, brother. See, Jason's there to pick me back up. I appreciate that. The Pistons are on fire. So, start getting the ring size. Start getting the ring size fitted. Start getting fitted. All right, continue.
It's unbelievable.
Real quick, Jeff, because I saw it in the comments. I haven't seen anything too much on it on social. Do they have any update? I saw Asar went down with the ankle.
Cramp. It was a calf cramp. Yeah, and you know what? I know not to bring when guys get hurt. Now looking back, it's a calf cramp, so it's okay. I had a parlay tonight. Everything hit. I had Asar Thompson over 12 or over 13.5 points and rebounds, and he had 13 on the dot. I needed one more, and he got hurt. He had a cramp. And he didn't even really get hurt. He just cramped up.
He played so good too.
He was playing, and he had the ball. He had the rock. He was about to make a good move and cramped up. And it's like, oh man, one. I'm just happy they won, though, to be honest, at the end of the day. This team's unbelievable too. And by the way, I'll say it too, because Sean already he tweeted it out, and I was wrong about Tobias. I can say it. What's crazy though about a situation like that is a month ago, Sean came on the show and was like, Sean's like, I was wrong because Tobias wasn't playing well. And now all of a sudden ever. Like they're playing their best ball of their season, and Tobias is playing unbelievable. So it's like it shows. You know what I think it shows the most, to be honest? I think it's two things. It's JB Bickerstaff and what he's doing with this team, and how he's able to bring these guys together and like just take. He did it in Cleveland, and it was crazy that they let him go, but and then Cade, like just people like these guys being able to play it around like a superstar like Cade, like he's literally turning into a top 5 player as we speak. Like as we watch him, he's turning into that guy. And when you have a guy like that on your team, I'm not saying he's the only reason, but like it makes it so much easier for guys like Tobias, Asar, Malik Beasley. Like you know what I mean? Like it opens up everything when you have a guy that a superstar on your team. Changes everything.
Yeah, sign JB Bickerstaff for the rest of his living life. Just give him an extension till he literally croaks. I want him a part of the organization. I do not care. And I got so much respect for him. He's an excellent coach. And I mean, Ty Lue gave him a lot of compliments too. He's like, yeah, he's a great coach when they beat the Clippers. Like they are doing something very special, ladies and gentlemen. They just won at home against the Celtics. They didn't have Jaylen Brown, but they were, I mean, the way they played was Asar Thompson. I know he got injured.
Yeah,
that's a dude. I mean, he had 2 steals in like the first quarter. So he's a guy that not only do I believe, hey, well, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. He'll be a candidate one season. He's so good.
Sure.
I mean, the stocks are off the chart. I mean, he's getting like he had 4 steals tonight. So hopefully he's okay. He'll be back soon. But I love this. It's fun. They're 8 straight. They're sitting comfortably right now in the postseason.
Yeah,
I don't know what you want more from this team. I mean, screw the 35 win take. Let's just up this thing. Let's get in the postseason, see what happens. That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Get the postseason, see what happens. I'm excited. It's fun watching Pistons basketball again. That crowd was ridiculous, and they've been top 10. I mean, I remember the Troy Weaver days. I was doing a point I brought up before was like they're still top 10 in attendance, and they were terrible.
People show up, man.
Think of it now. Now they're good. I mean, it's amazing. It's awesome. I love it. It's awesome to be a Pistons fan.
Trajan Langdon too. I mean, I'll double down on what Doc said, and you could say give credit to Tom Gore. I'm not. Listen, Troy Weaver and that whole thing. You went 16 years without a playoff win. Trajan Langdon comes in year 1, and it's not like you didn't have Cade before. No, like he came in and listen, add the right pieces, add some shooters. You know, the Malik Beasleys, Tim Hardaway's, Tobias Harris, like add the right pieces around, get JB Bickerstaff, like just the moves that it's unbelievable, to be honest. And honestly, seeing them win tonight and go 8 straight, when you get in the playoffs, to your point, Jeff, like they could beat anyone. I genuinely do think like first round, like they can win 4 in a 7-game series versus anyone if they're playing like this. I truly do believe that. And there are a couple games. I think they might be like 2 games out of the 4th seed.
Yeah,
not even
1
like
game
they're
back now.
From the 4th. Yeah, they're in the 6th seed,
Yeah.
but they're like they could get all the way up to the 4th. And I don't even know. I mean, I would love to pull it up. Like, can they get into the 3rd? And because it's like it's not like they're playing some of the best basketball in the entire NBA. Yeah, they're 4 games away, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, they're
4.5 back from the
back
3
at
seeds.
3, but
Yeah, like they're right there. They're 1 back from like, dude,
this was a
that's crazy.
13 or how, like the
14.
worst team in 14 win team last year. And now, I mean, like it
Franchise
is
record.
probably one of the most amazing things we've seen in NBA. Obviously, you're not going to say they're going to go to be NBA Finals contenders, but to see that type of turnaround from worst to a top half seed in the Eastern Conference, which I understand isn't that significant compared to the West. Like they wouldn't be the 4th seed in the West, but that just says a lot in not even a full calendar year of what JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon have done in Detroit. Crazy.
Yeah, the point you brought up about Trajan, the thing he understands is how to construct a roster, which
Yes.
you know that's part of being a GM. It's not just identifying talent, which I think Ron Holland, him and Asar have been that wing duo is dangerous, and they just it's the problem is the spacing. They just, hopefully I think I would be more confident right now, probably at a starting point with Ron Holland, but I think Asar will get there. But if both those guys just get a competent shot, both are going to be really good players. But I think Trajan understands how to construct a roster. Troy, like John said, he was a glorified scout. That's what he was. Trajan's not only an excellent talent evaluator from what we've seen, but also constructing, understanding spacing, being in lockstep with JB, who's an excellent coach, to what he wants. And they're working hand in hand. When you have that, everyone's intertwined. Everyone's on the same page. You see it right now. Like Tom Gore is like, he doesn't have to be there. I don't think he's attended any games. Just let those guys handle business and they'll be fine. So it's awesome. That's all I asked for, just not even this, but it's crazy.
And honestly, boys, I mean, it's one of the most amazing things of all time. I love the thing that's different between like the Pistons being good and the Lions. Like the Lions, our whole lives, I don't know, like, yeah, I mean, with you boys, I mean, I was gonna say, I don't know about you. Yeah, for all of us, the Lions have always been bad. So them being good is like, oh my gosh, but like for the Pistons, like growing up, they were great. Like there was nothing. It was like the standard was to like win a championship, and it's like for 16 years it was nothing. To see them like actually like compete and be good again. And it's not even like the Blake Griffin years where it was like, yeah, you're going to get the playoffs and lose right away. This is like the best part about this is they're doing what they're doing this year. These guys are young. Like this isn't an old Blake Griffin, an old Andre Drummond. This is like a young core that after this year, you even add more pieces and you have another draft and you sign more free agents and all the money that they have, boys. This team next year is going to be like, hey, they're contending for the East next year. Like, that's what I think it's like a little bit like, this is a little, hey, this feels like the old, hey, it feels like the good old days, boys. How about that?
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about a franchise that holds a lot of weight historically, the Pistons are, they hold weight. Not as of late. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, I thought they would be under 500 and we were still debating that. Imagine none of us, I mean, no one thought they'd be this good. I mean, this is like, and it's like the Cavs. The Cavs didn't really make any significant. They didn't really make any roster additions, really, and they get Kenny Atkinson. And look at him now. Like it's sometimes a coach, a different voice, but the right voice, more importantly, just helps. It does. And for whatever reason, didn't work out with JB in Cleveland. I don't think he should have been fired, but they thought it didn't work out. Yeah. Now he's with the Pistons. Lucky to have him. He's a great.
I mean, that's an unbelievable from the Cavs to let go of JB in the division, and it just comes right over to us. Hello.
Yeah.
Now we're good.
He rose the standards immediately,
which we haven't seen in years. Even with Stan Van Gundy and like with these guys, like it just never like there was never like an expectation. Like you know what I'm saying? Like there was never that like feeling of like, hey, we need to go out there and win every night. There wasn't that. There was always like excuses about, again, like I said about Troy Weaver. Like I genuinely, and I know this sounds crazy, I think he was addicted to rebuilding. Like I like an addiction.
That's a good point, Boone. I think there's some validity in that.
Yeah, like being addicted to cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, all these addictions. Like I genuinely think Troy Weaver was just addicted to rebuilding teams, and he couldn't get enough of it. He was like, I'm addicted to finding talent in the draft. I'm addicted to young players. Like that's like how it felt with him. And it was like, we need to get like that go quick, because that was like. And it literally the year one after you leave, like I think it shows. Like I know he drafted some of these guys, but to your point, Jeff, like building the roster.
Yeah, construction.
Like, as soon as he leaves, Trajan literally makes 3 moves or 4 moves, and this roster is right there. He fires the coach, boom, brings in JB, and everything's changed. So, I shout out to Trajan, shout out to JB, Kate. It's unbelievable. And hey, again, I will say. I was wrong about Tobias, but
fair,
Sean was wrong a month ago. He came on the show a month ago and said he was wrong, and then in another month, Tobias could end up being.
You guys are gonna have a battle of
just back and forth every month.
But it's like, I mean, it's well constructed, and you have Troy Weaver making trades for Joe Harris, and then he retires from basketball. You know what I mean? Like a year later or whatever, 2 years later. Like just like what do we? I mean. Love it. I love it. Trajan's been doing a great job.
Just smart. Hey, think about the future. Think about 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line.
It's crazy. Hey, we'll be live. Combine stuff. A lot of combine coverage. If you don't want to miss anything, follow us on all social media. It's all above. And if you're listening, Official CT Pod on X, Official CT Sports on Facebook, on Instagram, and then of course Official Crunch Time on TikTok. But we'll be covering it. Appreciate you all as always. Appreciate the doc for tuning in, because he's the man. But until tomorrow, check your phones, turn the notification bell on and everything, because get alerts, man. You don't want to miss anything. It's going to be a big day tomorrow. We will catch you all. But until then, peace.
See you tomorrow.